All right, we are now joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Team Penske Ford. If you have a question for Joey, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. We'll start up here with Dustin Long.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. A lot of talk since last week's Daytona 500 about the fuel-saving role and how it played into it. Obviously, fuel saving's been a part of every race, and it always will be. But I'm curious, with the excessive amount that you guys had to do and have had to do here lately, how do you have to look at that to presenting a different product to the fans moving forward, and how does that change, and how much is that going to be the case this weekend too?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about all the time how the draft evolves and how people evolve over time, and you can't unlearn things. Well, this is kind of the next step of speedway racing. As the field's closer and closer, it's harder and harder to pass. How do you cycle yourself ahead of the pack? Well, pretty obvious what the answer is last week, and it was where only a couple teams were doing it. Now it's all the teams doing it. How do you fix it? I don't know if there is a fix besides doing something to eliminate, stage cautions or something like that, like we tried at the road courses, or just adding more stages, which I don't know if I really want that. Right to where they just, but even then, I don't know. I don't know what the fix is. I do think it adds a different storyline for sure. There was that first stage where we were going so slow that everyone behind us was about to be able to bridge it to where they didn't have to pit. And at that point, we took off and left. And to me, it was like Tour de France is what it felt like to me. It's like everyone's in this peloton or whatever they call it, and a couple of runners take off, and they say, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? They're trying to drag the pack along and get them up to speed. And that everybody did kind of get up to speed after that. So it's a different strategy, and it's interesting. It's a different way of racing. It's still a race, right? Like this, it's still part of the race. It's just a different way of doing it, and it's up to everybody in this room to really educate the fans on what this next step is and why we're doing it. As much as we want to say we want to run 100% all the time, that's all well and good, but there's also just the strategy race that sometimes is pretty interesting.
I understand what a personal preference probably be to this question. From a strategy preference, is it better to be leading, or is it better to be a few cars back and saving more fuel? And even for Sunday's race, I know this track's more narrow; it's a little bit different. Do you want to be leading, or is it better to be leading, or better to be a little further back?
It's a little different here. It's look at it. The further back you are, the more fuel you can save, but the less control you have. So you can't control the speed of the pack anymore. So you're kind of at the mercy of what's going on in front of you. You're in a little bit more of a dangerous spot at that point of the race. And I'm going to choose more towards the front. Maybe not the leader, but towards the front. But sometimes you are where you are, and there's not much shuffling. After a few laps after the restart, it was kind of like this is where everyone settled in, and they were content with what they were doing. And so that can continue here, maybe. Not as wide of a racetrack, a little harder to gain track position, takes a little longer to move through the field, right? You see some restarts last week where, if you went for it, you can go from the back to the front really, really quick if everyone's saving fuel. And you can kind of catch them, off guard a little bit. But I don't know if that happens as much here.
LeeSpencerCatchFence.com. Do you want to control the race, or do you want your strategists controlling the race from, the pit box, the war room, wherever?
Yeah. When I say control the race, like we as a team, not necessarily me as a driver.
Do you as a driver want to be able to control your own race?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you ever do. Completely, right? It's still a team sport. We talk about that all the time. Like, I'm not just going to go pull my own strategy out at any track and say it's the right one, right? I mean, those guys have way more data in front of them than what I have, right? Like I have some interesting things around me and things that they can't see, but they also have a lot of things I can't see. And the best thing we can do is communicate and be on the same page together. So for the driver to just go rogue and do whatever he wants, I don't know if that's quite the good call. I don't know if it's going to work out every time.
So rogue question 2 here. Coleman was mentioning Brad Keselowski a lot in the closing laps of that race last week, and I'm wondering, was that part of your strategy to be with Brad, or it just seemed to be, it sounded like you were waiting on him, and I'm just kind of curious, do you have to make a call at some point when it doesn't behoove you, or benefit you rather, to worry about where Brad is and worry where Joey's going to be to get the best result for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Towards the end of the race, it was a good way to analyze it. Yeah, there was points that I could have left Brad to go block another lane. And you can probably debate this either way on what the right thing to do is there. But I felt like it was too early in the race to bail on him. I know it's like 8 to go, and he ended up bailing on me anyway. But I had my teammate behind that with Blaney, and that's one I can trust. So I'd rather have, be sitting second in line behind Ross with Blaney behind me with 8 to go. I feel like I have a better chance at that point because I have some loyalty behind me. Last lap, maybe things change. Your moves you make, your decisions you make have to change. But with 8 to go, it's a long ways to go in the race. If you lose your help at that point, you're on your own. I've been on my own at the end of these races before, and it's if they gang up on you, you're a sitting duck. You got nothing. I was being patient. I was just waiting, and I knew eventually Ross was going to miss a block, and I was going to slip him again. It already happened once there towards the end of the race there, so it was going to happen again. So I was just being patient, and just unfortunately got wrecked before we can really see things through. Yep.
Let's go to Chris Knight.
Chris Knight, CatchFans.com. Joey, last year Ford dominated qualifying here in the spring, capturing the top 8 spots led by you after the speed you guys showed last weekend in Daytona. Can Ford do it again here at Atlanta?
I like to think so. I mean, that's the thing these days. No practice, you can go straight into qualifying. I don't know. But I'd say, all signs showing good for qualifying today, considering what we did last year here and what happened in Daytona. But, you never know. Speed should be fast, though. It should be. A lot different here, though. I mean, everyone trims their cars differently and looks for different things, so it could be a little different. Still early to tell, but so far so good, yes.
Do we have any additional questions? Let's go up to Bob Pockris.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports. Does your approach change any, or preparation, or what you might try to do, considering it's a playoff race now in the fall?
No, our approach is the same. It doesn't really change. I mean, the goal is to win, whether it's a playoff race later or one coming up to it, or it's not in the playoffs at all. It doesn't really matter. Our approach is the same. Preparation is the same.
Dustin Long.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. It used to be at Daytona, it's like, hey, the season starts the next week. Well, here it's now what people are saying starts in 2 weeks from Daytona. Can you give me a sense of what you learn and pick up as a team or understanding these first 2 weeks of the Speedway races, and what you're looking for then when the series goes to Vegas and Phoenix, and how it's your different mindset?
Yeah, I mean, the season starts when the green flag drops in Daytona. I would even argue sometimes it starts at the Clash. I mean, it's a race, and I kind of like that as the beginning. But as far as knowing what you have in your car, right, to answer the question of what do you think of the new Dark Horse Mustang, I can't answer it completely yet. Right? So far, all signs are showing great, but we don't know that until we get to Vegas and Phoenix and Bristol and kind of see where we're at from a speed perspective. But as far as the season started, yeah, they're giving points out. They're giving trophies out. They're giving money out. We better go get it. It doesn't really matter, all the other stuff. It's interesting with 2 speedways to start. That does change the game some, but there's still the execution. The team's still here. Everybody's here. there's a lot going on still. Yep.
Any final questions? All right, thanks, Joey. Best of luck this weekend.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.